It's we're going.
Okay. Okay. Continue. Okay. Got that off the screen. Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our council meeting. Bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Aucune déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire? None. Is there a mover and a seconder for the...
Point of order. Point of order, Madam Mayor. There's two items, I believe, that would need a declaration by yourself and Councillor Lees and also Councillor Yvon on this agenda. The matter of G1 for yourself and Councillor Lees, and Yvon, well, that's a human resources in closed session.
Okay. Conseil Rowley, may I remind you that if there's a disclosure of conflict of interest, it is up to the individual to disclose if they feel they are in a conflict. If not, they do not have to declare a conflict. Conseil Lees?
I just want to say that I know I had mentioned now that you are saying that I would be declaring a conflict of interest because of the bill, the lawyer's fee, which was incurred for one of the investigations that I had litigation against me. And I did seek advice. And like Madame Mayor said, I'm the only one that can declare a conflict of interest. I am not in a conflict of interest. The invoice itself was an interim. The first one was paid, interim for the next one, and the municipality, the invoice is addressed to the municipality, therefore it's not addressed to me. I have nothing to gain. And so therefore I won't be declaring a conflict of interest because I am not in a conflict of interest. So if you feel that I am, well, you do what you have to do. Thank you, Madame Mayor.
Merci, Conseillère Lise, pour votre explication. Mais comme identifié, Conseiller Rowley, c'est à l'individu, le membre élu, à déclarer un conflit quand que l'individu se sent dans une situation de conflit. Donc, en revenant à la résolution pour l'autre jour, coming back to the agenda for this evening, there is one amendment, une modification under new business item E12, E12, based on information provided to I by the clerk. There has been additional information submitted, and this item will be removed from the agenda for this evening for the clerk to review the information and will be brought back at our next council meeting. Va être amené à notre prochaine réunion de conseil. Is there a mover and a seconder for the amended agenda? Conseil Yvon, Conseil Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of council held on June the 15th, 2021 be adopted as amended.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None? Carried? Adopté. On procède avec délégation et pétition. We proceed with delegation and petition. We have a guest amongst us this evening. Ça me fait un grand plaisir au nom du Conseil de souhaiter la bienvenue à notre commissaire d'intégrité, M. Cormier. Welcome, M. Cormier, to our council meeting. It's a pleasure to have you amongst us this evening and for the presentation of the annual report from 2020 to 2021, I believe. So with undue delay, I'll pass it on to you. And after the presentation, if there's any questions or comments, clarification that's required, I'll open the floor to members of council to be able to have the opportunity. Donc, encore une fois, bienvenue.
May I ask a question, Madame Mayor?
Oui, Conseillère Lise?
I'm just wondering, did we get the report in or because I cannot find it? No? So we got to receive a copy of the report then? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Donc, je cède la parole à notre invité, M. Patrice Cormier, notre commissaire d'intégrité.
Thank you. Donc, it's my annual report. It's dated April 26th. And I'm pleased again to be able to present my council or your council with my report for 2020-2021. Can everybody hear me correctly?
Oui.
This is now my second annual report to council as Integrity Commissioner for the Municipality of West Nipissing. As such, this report will focus on the activities of my office for the period of March 1st, 2020 to February 28th, 2021. I have amended somewhat the format after having received feedback from some members of council while presenting my first report on September 15th of 2020. All know that the Office of the Integrity Commissioner was created as a process for hearing complaints regarding elected officers, and may recall that I was appointed by your municipality in March of 2019. As my term began on March 1st, 2019, it continues until December 1st, 2022, and may be renewed for a further 4 years at the municipality's sole discretion. Over the 2 years now, I, as the Integrity Commissioner, have received numerous complaints and requests for advice and education from members of council. I'd like to once again acknowledge the highly efficient and very professional administrative support that's provided to my office by your municipality's clerk, planner, and staff. As in my first year, my focus this past year was to follow through with the implementation of a formal complaint process. Specifically, I have continued to respect the complaint process, whereby my office would receive a formal request for investigation form with a sworn affidavit to commence the investigative process. Only once satisfied that an investigation was warranted, would I then send the details of the complaint to the member of council for his or her reply to the allegations of breach. I would then determine if any further investigation was warranted. It should be noted again this year that no formal hearings have been held to date, as all complaints have been resolved without the necessity of such hearings. The complaints were either withdrawn, unfounded, or resolved amicably by the interested parties. You'll recall that my mandate and the role, which is a statutory role of the Integrity Commissioner, is set out in the Municipal Act. More particularly, without limiting sections 9, 10, and 11 of paragraph 223 of that Act, those sections authorize the municipality to appoint an Integrity Commissioner who reports to council and who's responsible for performing an independent manner the functions assigned by the municipality with respect to any or all of the following. And there's a number. I'll name a few. The application of the Code of Conduct, the application of any procedures, rules, and policies, the applications of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, the request from members of council or of any local boards for advice respecting their obligations under the Code of Conduct applicable to that member, requests from members of council and local boards for advice respecting their obligations under a procedure, a rule, a policy that the municipality has or that the local board must be governed by. Requests by the members of council and local boards for advice respecting their obligations under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. The provision of educational information of members of council and members of local boards. You'll recall that I report directly to council on matters related to the Code of Conduct and other policies, rules, or procedures related to ethics for council members. I will also report to council on matters related to the code of conduct for local boards, including adjudicative boards, if any. I and anyone who I may direct or instruct must preserve secrecy with respect to all matters that come to my attention. I do have the power to undertake investigation into complaints alleging contraventions of the applicable code of conduct while respecting confidentiality. While my reports are public, I'm permitted to disclose necessary information related to the findings, all while maintaining confidentiality. I can make recommendations to council relating to the code of conduct breaches, but remember, only council can sanction one of its own members. Council has the authority to assign additional powers and duties to the Integrity Commissioner. My overview. In addition to the legislated role that I have as the Integrity Commissioner of your municipality, I was assigned both an advisory and education function to the position. These are important functions of the office that were incorporated into the expanded legal mandate of all municipal integrity commissioners in Ontario as of March 1st, 2019. As was stated in my first report, my workload as Integrity Commissioner during the 2019 and 20 reporting cycle, my first year, so from March 1st, 2019 to February 29th, 2020, would most likely be higher than in the next years to come. This was largely due to consultation with members of council and staff and work related to the review and implementation of the Code of Conduct for members of council during that, my first year. I'm sad to say that that's not the case, as you will see in the financial section of my report. The volume of work has, in fact, increased after that initial period of education and adjustment to the new code. More importantly, the complaint, investigation, and adjudications. Anyone who identifies or witnesses behavior or an activity that they believe to be in violation of the code may pursue the matter through the formal complaint process. All complaints are received and handled in accordance with the set procedures. There's no fee charged for making a complaint against a member of council. I might add here that not in my report, though there's no fee charged for making the complaint, you bet your bottom dollar that there's a fee to your municipality for my services. During the 2020-2021 reporting period, my office received 8 formal complaints, 4 informal complaints, which fell within my jurisdiction as the Integrity Commissioner. I've also received a few separate general advice complaints or potentially conflict of interest situations. I continued to work on 3 formal complaints that remain open at the time of this reporting cycle. In addition to complaints received through the informal or formal complaint process, my office also received a number of inquiries that were either related to matters outside of my jurisdiction or did not follow the established complaint procedures. I will now turn to the specific complaints that were either not yet resolved by the report of my first annual report or received after March 1st of 2020. For the formal complaints, as required by the process, formal complaints are submitted on the appropriate request for investigation, Code of Conduct for Council form with a signed affidavit to my attention and must include information to support the allegations made against a member, including dates, locations, the specific sections of the Code of Conduct, other persons that were present, and all other relevant information to that complaint. My office conducts an intake analysis of each formal complaint to determine whether the matter is, on its face, a complaint with respect to non-compliance of a section of the Code of Conduct for members of council and not covered by any other legislation or other council policies. I also consider whether the complaint is frivolous, vexatious, or not made in good faith, or whether there are sufficient grounds to even pursue an investigation. The sixth complaint referred to in my last year's report has now been completed. The investigation revealed a breach of the Code of Conduct, and the member was invited to write a letter of apology to the complainant, and the matter was resolved without further action. The seventh complaint referred to in my last year's report has been investigated and resolved. I was referred to 2 live stream sessions of 2 separate different meetings of council by the constituent who was the complainant, and found no such breaches to the Code of Conduct. The 8th complaint referred to in my last year's report was indeed investigated and revealed yet another breach of the Code of Conduct, and it was proposed that the member opt for a meeting in person in my presence or offer an apology. However, because of COVID-19 restrictions, a letter of apology was sent to the member to resolve this complaint. During the period of the present report, which is remembering from March 1st of this year, or of last year, to February 28th of this year, a number of complaints were received, and I will refer to them in chronological order as follows. Complaint number 16. The complainant member complains of a member intimidating, attempting to influence and doubting the validity of holding an in-camera illegal meeting that led to an unhealthy, negative, and toxic working environment. After reviewing the evidence of emails and your new section 2.6 of your bylaw 2020/25, electronic participation during emergency, I indeed determined that there was no breach of the Code of Conduct in the very specific set of circumstances, and given once again the pandemic. Complaint number 17. The complainant member requested an investigation against a member for lack of integrity and breach of confidentiality. After investigation, I have determined no such breaches from all the evidence that was provided. Complaint number 18. The complaint member complains of a member not respecting confidentiality by sending email disclosing confidential information. Finally, after investigation, it was determined that the extraordinary circumstances required extraordinary measures, and it was held that the member had not breached the Code of Conduct in those circumstances. Complaint number 19. The complainant member alleges that a member had not declared a conflict of interest by voting on an issue that the member was also a member of the same committee. It was determined that there was no such breach, as the member had no direct or indirect personal interest in the vote, but rather a benefit that it is of general application across the municipality by virtue of sitting on the committee, per se. Complaint number 20. The complainant member alleges that a member would have breached confidentiality by releasing information in a closed session. After reviewing the evidence and conferring with the clerk of your municipality, it was determined that the member had not breached the Code of Conduct in again, yet those very specific set of circumstances. Complaint number 21, the complainant taxpayer this time had complained of a member being rude and disrespectful via a comment on Facebook. The member had sent an apology prior to my involvement, and the taxpayer was content that no further action was required. That complaint was resolved amicably. Complaint number 22. The complainant member complains of a member posting information that was used to bash the member. No formal request for investigation was ever received from the member, so that complaint was not further investigated. Complaint number 23. My office was provided a copy of a complaint that had been filed with the Ombudsman for Ontario. I took no further action with my office. Complaint number 24. This was a request pursuant to the Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act for information pertaining to complaints number 16 through 20, and more particularly, the name of the parties, the nature of the complaints with findings. All that information was forwarded to the clerk of your municipality and will be found at Annex A to this, my report. Every member has indeed a copy of that report. Complaint number 25 and number 26. These complaints and files remain open as an ongoing investigations. I was now awaiting the members' chronology of events to advance both of those investigations. A request for an extension of time had been granted, but no reply to the complaint had yet been received from that member by my office. Complaint number 27, this was a second request pursuant to the information or the Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act. This time pertaining to all the complaints numbered 1 through 15 and any subsequent to number 20. All that information was also forwarded to the clerk's office and was included in a report which you will find at my Annex B to this report. Complaint number 28, there's only 2 to go. This complaint by taxpayer remains open as an ongoing investigation and will require a chronology of events by the member for consideration by my office. And finally, complaint number 29. This complaint by taxpayer also remains open for the member to prepare a reply to that complaint. Those are the complaints. Now, inquiries and advice. Providing written advice and interpretations to inquiries from members of council and their staff is a core function of the Integrity Commissioner's mandate. All requests for advice and advice provided shall be in writing. And under the new subsections of the Municipal Act, all requests for advice shall be made in writing. Presently, requests for advice are received by way of email and or telephone calls. I would encourage members to continue contacting me informally as the needs arise. And it's been my experience that information provided by email has a quicker response time. All general legal advice requests have been for potential conflict of interest situations. I would once again encourage all members to review the Code of Conduct regularly, but more particularly subsection 511 of the conflict of interest in your code. Finally, my financial statement for the year. The Integrity Commissioner's remuneration consists of an hourly fee of $250 per hour in office or $300 per hour when on site or away from the office, and a fee of $100 per hour for traveling to and from the municipality and all applicable taxes. The financial breakdown from March 2020 to February of 2022, in comparison with last year's report, will be set out in detail month by month for a total of this year $24,030.06 as compared to last year's total of $12,306.88. My consultation with members of council this past year suggests that members are somewhat satisfied with the assistance they receive through my office. However, I feel that a report on every complaint may be necessary. I do look forward to working with all of you again this year. Rest assured that I will always make myself available for the betterment of the corporation, of the municipality of West Nipissing. And if that means more regular reporting, so be it. I do look forward to the year ahead. Education and further reporting will be key priorities in all aspects of my work. This is respectfully submitted by my office, dated April 26th, 2021 at Hawkesbury, Ontario. That is my report, Madame le Maire.
Merci à Monsieur Cormier. Very detailed, très détaillé. I'll open the floor to members of council if they have questions or points of clarification. And I'll just do a round table to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to have their say. Conseiller Yvon?
Non, il n'y a pas de question, Mme Mairesse. Merci, M. Cormier, pour votre rapport.
Conseiller Chris?
So, question's actually more for Elisa, if she's there. Elisa? So I'm just looking at the 2020 budget and the 2021 budget. And so my understanding is that the 2021, is that that's under legal, under mayor and council is the budget for the integrity commissioner. Am I correct there? Is that where it goes?
Let me just pull the budget back up. I believe that we put the integrity commissioner under other professionals, not under legal, but let me see how the budget actually looks for 1 second here.
So it's, yeah. So yeah, there's professional, there's legal, and then there's professional fees. Professional fees is
Yeah, so the professional fees, it's not the legal, it's the professional fees.
right. And so we had 40 total budget 2020, and sorry, I'm confused. And 2021, we have 25 budget. Is that correct?
There's 25,000 in the budget for 2021. That's correct.
Right, thank you.
Conseiller Rowley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Very nice, very good report, in depth. And at this time, I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Conseiller Leo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Patrick, for your report. Just one question. When you review the live stream, is that $250 an hour when you're watching, or you and your staff, or just you by yourself?
That's me by myself.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I should point out that there's no extra related assistance from any member of my firm. So there's no legal assistant per se. There's nobody else. The only fees that you will see on my accounts are my fees.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gourmet.
Conseiller Dan?
Okay, I have two comments. First of all, the report is, we're going to have a copy, hopefully, to see it, to review it. And if there's any questions, we can forward our questions to you. I'm assuming that.
I have no difficulties with that. What I propose to do, Dan, is send Melanie a copy of my report after this meeting, and then it could be tabled or filed.
Okay, thank you. Secondly, the clock starts March 1st, 2021 for the new year. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay, so what you just reported was on the last year, and we had a total of 29 that passed through your office.
A total of 29?
Yes?
Yeah. Well, those are numbered complaints.
But some of those are inquiries also, or
That's correct. That's correct.
Information, that's all lumped into a number, okay?
That's correct.
Your last comment, I was not too sure if I heard that properly. You said that all reports done by your office will become public, in as much as that it will warrant a copy, not a copy, it'll warrant a documentation that you'll have written with your findings, well, with the allegation, with your findings, and that will be a public document now.
Well, it's a public document in the sense that it's provided to the clerk's office and then made public.
So made public by, should it go, so should the process be that once you have finished off a report, that it goes to the clerk, it should go onto the agenda for the public to see it then?
That's my understanding as to how you guys work in your jurisdiction.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted that clarified. Okay, thank you. Good stuff.
Conseiller Denis?
Merci, Patrice, pour ta présentation. Rien qu'une affaire, tu parlais de hearing. Is a hearing, you said you didn't have any hearings?
Aucune audition. Aucune audition. Non.
C'est quelle condition qui causerait d'avoir une audition?
Si je voudrais contre-interroger un témoin, par exemple, je ne peux pas faire ça ni au téléphone, ni par courriel. Donc, mon instinct d'avocat veut en sorte que je puisse contre-interroger sur une déclaration déjà remise.
Ce serait, tu veux vérifier l'histoire d'un collaborateur, I guess.
Oui, habituellement, ce qu'on verrait, c'est qu'une partie A dirait une chose, la partie B dirait complètement le contraire, ou quelqu'un dirait noir, l'autre dirait blanc, ou quelqu'un dirait 10, l'autre dirait 20. Là, à ce moment-là, si je ne peux pas me satisfaire sur une balance de probabilité, je vais vouloir contre-interroger la partie A et la partie B pour rendre une détermination des faits que j'accepte.
Compris, merci.
Conseillère Lise?
Merci, Patrice, pour la présentation. C'est très, très clair. Je veux juste un peu te demander si tu veux, comme si tu reçois une plainte informelle. Informelle, ça, c'est au début. C'est là, tu vois, toi, s'il y a des causes à continuer à faire une investigation. Alors, ça, c'est quelque chose que j'imagine qu'une plainte informelle et une plainte formelle prend beaucoup moins de temps parce que là, il faut investiguer. Alors, puis parfois, c'est comme tu disais, que des affaires informelles, je crois qu'au début, on avait peut-être plus parce qu'on commence plus à être habitué au processus, de la façon que ça fonctionne, là. Mais le coût est plus demandant quand tu fais une investigation parce que tu as plus de travail. OK? Puis quand tu attends, puis tu demandes des informations, puis où tu mets une extension pour une date, j'imagine que toi, tu attends, c'est mis en hold, ça, puis tu attends d'avoir c'est pour ça que des fois que ça prend du temps. OK?
C'est exact.
Okay. Ma question maintenant, tu as dit que tu as un rapport complet, pas de problème. est-ce que les coûts associés avec le Freedom of Information qui était fait, les deux, dans le passé, vont être identifiés?
Oui, parce que vous allez voir dans mes comptes, donc dans les comptes, il y a un détail et dans mon rapport, il y a également les deux rapports qui sont annexés là, à mon rapport annuel. Ça fait que si vous voulez faire le lien entre le rapport A et le rapport B, vous allez le voir dans mes comptes mensuels.
OK, so le coût va être identifié, c'est quoi que ça a coûté pour faire ces rapports-là. OK, merci
Absolument.
beaucoup, Patrice.
Donc, moi, je tiens à remercier aussi pour le rapport. A big thank you for being amongst us and sharing us the annual report. I've heard what I've retained is I would have hoped that it would have been better news pertaining to the involvement of our IC regarding complaints throughout the years, because at the end, it is the taxpayers that do borne the cost. And the objective is, to conform to our code of conduct. I truly appreciate the advice, the mechanism for having access to advice and pertaining to Conflict of Interest Act and issues pertaining to procedures and policies, because in the past, we really had no mechanism outside the corporation to be able to have recourse to this. So this is greatly appreciated, and that is an added value to municipalities and to elected officials. So once we do get that report, I'm assuming that all members will be reviewing it based on the information that's been shared. Would it be easier that we forward all our questions as in a bulk through our clerk planner to your office as a suggestion, or is it preferable that it would be directed to you one-on-one if that would be the situation?
I would suggest that questions coming from all members be incorporated into one email so I can reply to one email. If not, my hourly rate is there and it's 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 every time I get an email, a telephone call. And if I'm going to get 10 telephone calls, well, that'll be $250 for 10 telephone calls instead of one email at 0.1 or 0.2.
Okay. And I think, I would concur with that, but that'll be up to council to make that decision.
Absolutely.
So what we'll do is we can get this subject matter added to our next agenda so we can discuss and try to streamline it to be more effective, costly, pertaining to budget for our taxpayers. And that'll be the decision of council, whatever council feels comfortable with. So, je veux juste clarifier une des questions puis une des réponses. Après l'investigation, le sommaire, le rapport est acheminé à notre commis et la commis le partage avec le conseil. So whatever we have goes public. I do know that the Municipal Freedom of Information report, the two requests that had been done, council had agreed to have both reports posted on your municipal website. And that's also another mechanism to make sure that it's accessible to the public and that the public are not kept in the dark and that we're being as transparent as possible. So should we be doing that individually as well, or wait for an annual report to post the annual report on our website?
Well, again, if you're talking cost efficiency, it would be best for the municipality to wait at the end of the year to have that report. And that report can be detailed on a yearly basis. However, I am open to make a report on every complaint that I receive and forward it so it can be updated regularly, or however you guys want it at the municipality level, and however transparent you want your decisions, or my decisions, or my findings to be made public quarterly or monthly or yearly. But I'm telling you that that's what's costing the municipality. It's when I have to sit down and prepare a report. I know what my findings are. My findings are in my file. But to make a report is to actually sit down and spend $250 or $500 to prepare a report for council, because I have to watch every word and every name that I put in that report. The report may not be lengthy, but it may have taken me 3, 4, 5 hours to prepare for it to go on a public site. It's not as if I'm reporting to a client for the client's individual benefit. I'm reporting to the public.
Okay, so I guess maybe I made a misinterpretation of the entire issue, because I thought, A, if there was a complaint, if there was validity to investigate, and then the outcome of the investigation, if there was a violation, then there would be a report that comes to council. If there's no violation, then there's no report that comes to council, and then we receive that on an annual basis. So why now is there a request for individual reports to be submitted to the clerk when that was not, I believe, an issue that council directed or requested from your services?
That's correct. That came about when we received the Freedom of Information Act requests, that the exercise, I had to go through everything, and that meant report my findings of not having found anyone in a breach.
Okay. And that becomes costly to taxpayers. So I thought that our bylaw would be the bylaw that would outline the services being provided to the municipality of West Nipissing. So why would the Municipal Freedom of Information change our actual bylaw regarding the services that we're acquiring from our IC? Because I thought it was council's direction to, and we have two bylaws, one for the authority of the Municipal Act for creating the office of the IC, and then we have the bylaw acquiring the services of the IC, outlining exactly what the duties are. So I didn't think that we, as council, had amended that bylaw.
It was not amended.
It was not. Okay. So who has the authority then to say to our IC, you will provide us with a report every time that there's whether an investigation or no investigation done? Sorry for all the questions. I'm just trying to seek trying to identify the flow and making sure that I'm not incorrect in my misinterpreting the actual bylaw.
You're not misinterpreting it. It's my not reporting things that I thought that were not needed to be reported, and could have waited until my final report.
Okay. Okay. So based on that, does that mean council has the authority to discuss this?
Absolutely, because council is the one that's going to direct me as to how it is you want me to proceed in the future. Every formal complaint I get, do you want a formal report to council? Or if it's something that's resolved on an amicable basis and everyone's satisfied, do the members of council want my report outlining that? Or can they not wait until February or March of next year for that to happen. If there's something that I feel needs to be reported, and it's of the utmost importance that it be reported straight away, I would not hesitate, not for a minute, to report.
Okay. And I would agree with that, but then council has to be on the same page. Now I see that our CEO is lifting his hand, and then we also have Conseiller Dan. Jay?
I think you made a further an earlier recommendation, Madam Mayor, indicating that you should have a look and receive the actual report, and then I believe you get together, and then you can determine what questions go back to the IC, but also recommendations for changes of the structure of the report or the structure or anything in our bylaw. So receive the report, which is what the IC did tonight. He provided you with a thorough presentation of what is in there. Now it's for you to consider it and move forward at that point. So I think your earlier recommendation is that could be talked about once you all have things that you want to consolidate to get back to them.
Okay, thank you, Jay. And Conseiller Dan?
My point is that the reason probably that we got the request for information requests was that because people were feeling that it was not transparent, and that that there was something hidden somewhere. So the point being is, I think what you were suggesting is that if you wrote a report on the ones that are contentious, the ones that are not frivolous, the ones that have, a breach in it, that there be a report. And then that way you won't get stuck looking at requests for information and looking at 20 of them because the person wants all of them at the same time. And that would be very costly to the municipality. I inferred that that's what you were getting at, that you were getting at the point that if you do a report, then at least it's out, it goes to the clerk, we can determine whether we put it out, yes or not. And then that would be a better cost effective than having you sit down and do like you had to do for 16 to 20, and then you had to do from another one, 1 to 15, where you had to sit down and write a report for every one of them because it was a request for information. So I think that's where we have to navigate in.
Conseiller Lise?
Well, at this point of time, when it comes to freedom of information, I mean, I think if they want to ask, they're paying. We're not paying for anybody. That's freedom of information is the people that asking for the information that have to pay for it. The municipality, the taxpayers should not pay for somebody that's going and asking us. If I ask for freedom of information myself, I will pay for it. So, and this is the way it's going. So, as far as I'm concerned, I think people have the right to know. I don't think the one that when you're calling and there's an informal complaint, because we all know now that sometimes a word, the way that we say a word can make all the difference to an investigation or not. So I feel that the one that are investigated and that are found, I don't want to use guilty, but a breach of our code, I think they're the one that should be sent after to mail and posted, because that's the one. The rest, I mean, and I think it's a lot better to try to especially the first couple of years that I think you're getting less and less complaint, because if we get information before, that would save a lot of money at the end, because the question is answered. So you don't need to do a formal investigation or something like that. So that's my thought, but like I said, it can be discussed at council, I guess.
Well, we'll have a discussion at our next meeting. Conseiller Chris?
So just to clarify, the municipality is actually responsible. I mean, somebody can clarify better than me, I'm sure, but we are responsible for MFIPA requests. Like we are the keepers of the information. It's the municipality that does that. So it's not the responsibility of somebody who wants to get information from Mr. Cormier to pay Mr. Cormier for that information. We should have that already. We're the keepers of it under MFIPA. I'm sure about that.
We'll have that discussion at our next meeting because I think this is an issue that with the clarification and even further questions that we may want to put together so we can make a constructive decision. And keep in mind, we want to be transparent, but we also want to be able to balance the taxpayers' dollars that are being spent on this because every penny does count. So if there's no further questions pertaining to the actual presentation, I really want to take this opportunity to say thank you to our IC, Monsieur Cormier. We appreciate your professionalism, the work that you're doing for our municipality, with council, with our staff, with our constituents. And we wish one day that it'll be more positive news. But in the interim, I think it's a period of reflection to all members that we have a privilege of representing our taxpayers and trying to do the best that we can for the position that we've been elected to do.
Well said, Madam Mayor. And I thank every one of you for your patience. I know that all the reports and everything that get back to the members who either complain or who have to defend themselves because of a complaint. Sometimes there's a quick return time, and because of other obligations, sometimes it's not as quick. And I'm sorry for that, but all in all, I can tell you that the complaints are taken very seriously, and every opportunity I get when I speak to a member, whether that's by email or by telephone, I tell them that they're elected to be as best as they can be for the constituents who want them to be there. And that's important for every member to know. You people are there because other people in the community want you people to be there for them. So you have to be there for them, and you ought not to be disputing amongst yourselves any negativity. And that's not to say that there's discord among members. We know that. I think that's public. But I think it's important to have those constructive discussions and make the appropriate decisions once those discussions have been made. C'est toujours un plaisir pour moi, évidemment, là, de rendre service à la municipalité. And I will be sending my written report to Melanie this evening. And if you have any suggestions, I'm open to suggestions. And I hope your council does reflect on a more appropriate way of reporting these mishaps. I call them mishaps because often they're one sentence, one word, or one letter, but they're mishaps, and mishaps are part of your job. We just want to correct those mishaps so we have fewer and fewer within the next few months.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Thank you so much.
Et bonne soirée à tous.
Okay. Au revoir. Okay, we move on to committee environmental environment. I'll pass it on to the chair, Conseil Broley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And one more trying, we'll try to pass our budget for solid waste environmental. At our last meeting, we came at an impasse on decision on the recycling bins, and we directed staff for more information on the reduced amount of bins. And with this, I guess Jay has a report for us. So Jay, could you please enlighten us with it, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not so much of a report. I think our original report was the recommendations or the options that we were bringing forward. So in a memo, status quo, or, which is nothing, or accept the full amount, or somewhere in between. And then if you're somewhere in between, obviously it's a cost, the startup cost deal mostly with the acquisition of the bins. So if you bought less bins, it'll be less expensive, obviously. And you can, I think I put it in the original memo. I don't have it in front of me here, but it's about 11,000 a bin, I believe. So the options are cash pay and living, or just living, or just cash pay, or cash pay and living with less bins. I can't really take a guess any more than that. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Jay. With this, I'll open the floor to, we'll start with Councillor Yvon. You got any comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After reviewing Jay's report and looking into the matter seriously with the people of the community and receiving numerous phone calls, I would then be satisfied with the fact that we would not need bins of cash pay, and I would not support having bins installed in cash pay, but I will support having something for living, Mr. Chair, and I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Councillor Yvon. Really appreciate. Councillor Fisher?
I concur. I definitely don't understand why cash pay is even on here, because the Councillor for Cash Pay doesn't particularly think it's a good idea. So I don't know why we would be thinking that. From my perspective, I know they were in Levine before. They didn't work. It's a lot of money that every taxpayer has to take. So I'm not favorable of the idea, but I'm definitely against them going into cash pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chris. Councillor Leo?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's the same thing. Was talking to the people in cash pay, the same thing as Councillor Yvon was saying. And they're not, because we have recycled pickup. If we didn't have a recycled pickup, it'd be a different story. And then if we put bins in cash pay, and then some residents in Sturgeon Falls will say, okay, I want some bins too. So where will we stop? So in Laving, maybe I have a couple in Laving, and okay, but not in cash pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leo. Councillor Dan, you have any comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The point being, I think Yvon and Leo presented it very well, because I'm hearing the same thing. I got calls too from people from Cash Bay saying that they don't want it and that there's no need. In regards to living, I think that if we do anything, I think it should only be a pilot. I don't know what staff had recommended. I know that the mayor had said that she wanted 2 there. If that's what what people are comfortable with too, I guess I could support that. But in as much as I think staff has said that anything less than 4 would be a hodgepodge and would cause Denis hardship, because it's going to become a dump in the sense that it just won't be enough. We don't send our trucks out that often. So that's my position, and I think that it's a compromise. People are putting water in their wine on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Dan. Madam Mayor, do you have any comments on this?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification. I don't believe the mayor said that we should go down to 2 bins at any of the location. I've been advocating, saying that there was a clear direction that had been made by council pertaining to the issue of living in Cash Bay. I took the opportunity to watch the live stream of the meeting that we had November 5th. And it's understandable why some councillors may not remember the decision that had been taken, because we were only 7 people out of the 9 in attendance at that meeting. And yourself, Mr. Chair, you were not present at that meeting, even though that the minutes, you endorsed the minutes because it was chaired by Conseiller Yvon. It was clearly identified that evening, based on the report presented to council, that staff had been provided the duty that day to get peddling and move forward with the implementation of the bins in Laving. We were also informed that the dump attendant in Laving, who lives across the street at the proposed location, which would be on municipal property, would have the duty to monitor and to maintain the cleanliness of the bins, and that would be added to their contract. It was identified that it was to honor council's commitment of a decision they had done, and that we had already lost a season, and that it would be implemented 2020.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I think the mayor is trying to rehash the whole history of it. We're asked here to approve a budget tonight. And the thing is, by rehashing what we knew all along, I think is a waste of our taxpayers' time. And the point is that what we're looking at is we're looking at whether we're going to put them in Laving or whether we're going to put them in Cache Bay. Let's not rehash all that, because what your interpretation and our interpretation is completely different. That's my point of order, sir.
Thank you.
First of all,
I will rule on the point of order. A point of order has been called, and I will rule on it. And you are you are right, Councillor Dan. Now is the time to move forward with this and not go back to he said, she said, at an amount of $143,000 without bringing it to council.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
I don't agree spending the amount of money that's been identified to council. I don't agree with that amount of money, okay? The whole issue that's been debated is whether it was a reconsideration. We got a memo saying that there was maybe a perception that people, elected officials, misunderstood, okay? So we're debating an issue where a decision has been taken, and it was clearly taken for the Laving community.
Point of order,
And
Mayor, do you have any?
First of all, Mr. Chair,
You've ruled, Chair.
Mr. Chair, if one wants a point of order, please review your procedural bylaw. The first thing that they should do is to be able to receive the floor by the chair and then state their point of order, not to jump into the middle of conversation.
Point of order.
Councillor Dan, could you identify your point of order, please?
Mr. Chair, all I want to do is move forward. I think that this is not getting anywhere. And my point of order is that the mayor is rehashing something that you ruled on already as saying it was not substantiated. And that I know the rules of the point of order, Madam Chair. Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Councillor Dan. And
So
you
if I
are
were
right.
able to finish, because we're talking about the recycling bins of Laving and recycling bins of Cache Bay.
Mayor, are you in favor of having recycling bins in Cache Bay and Laving?
First, can I just finish, Mr. Chair? And I will give you my answer. And I want to keep it short and sweet.
Please,
Okay.
please do.
The
short and
issue
sweet.
was a reconsideration. And when it was for Cache Bay, Conseiller Liu asked if there would be a letter issued to Miss Jennifer Jetnak, providing her with the decision of council. Now, I do know by listening to the live stream that it was identified that a plan would come back to council for Cache Bay. That's what it was identified, okay? So I wanted to highlight that. So this evening, for the issue of Cache Bay, we were not provided a plan similar to the one in Laving. I accept that. And I wish to see a plan come back to council at a later date so we can discuss Cache Bay. However, it was
At this time,
clear.
Madam Mayor, it's a vote. Do you support having bins in Laving?
What I'm saying, yes, because
Thank
that
you.
decision was made, and
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
want to
No,
put
it
it on
wasn't.
record.
Thank you.
Wasn't.
Mr. Chair, may I clarify just my final comment? If anyone wants to challenge the decision, the direction that was provided by council, there is a live stream for that
Madam Mayor,
meeting.
you have stated what
And
you have
I will
stated, yes.
I will
will
make
move
it a
on to
pleasure to
Councillor
share
Day.
it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Denis, you have any comments?
Well, I'm not sure I'm allowed to comment, but I will.
Oh, yes. I'm giving you.
Oh, yes. Oh, well,
Yay.
good. Thank you. I thought we were in Russia here. I think
Yeah.
comments are limited to whoever's speaking. Anyways, I was promised these bins in 2019. And if you don't want to give them to me, it's a reconsideration and we have to vote on it. And we haven't done that. So as far as I'm concerned, let's move on and install the bins that were promised in 2019.
Okay, so you're in favor of it,
And
Councillor
if there's
Denis?
excuse me, if there's a vote, you can't vote on one issue and not the other one. Everybody has voted against cash base. I would like to hear their votes for living. So
We're
you
not
can't-
voting yet. I just want,
Oh,
I'm giving you a chance.
No, we're
I'm
not
giving you a
voting.
chance to, yes, we will be
Well,
voting.
they voted. They voted.
Okay.
So I would ask them to vote either for living and cash bay, or living, not living and not cash bay, or living and not cash bay. So
That
if
is
they're gonna
correct.
vote, let's do
That is
it.
correct.
You
That
can't.
is correct. That's where we're going.
Well, that's not what I heard.
No, that's where it's going.
They're sitting on the fence here, so they must, they have to say which side they're gonna fall. Anyways, like I said, I was promised bins in 2019. It was looked at the council in 2018, and there was a project there. And so I don't see the objections here. There's been objections lately. And the manager of environmental has recommended 6. I'm not 6 bins in living, and I think that's too much, but I'm not the expert. Or whatever bins that the manager feels is proper, we should go with that. I know they have 10 bins in Verner, so I guess we need at least 3 in living, if not more. But
Okay, thank you.
But no, excuse me, I'm not done. To say that garbage is going to fly all over living is a misstatement, because we have bins all over the municipality. And why are we targeting living? We have bins in Crystal, we have bins in Monetville, and we have bins in Verner and Crystal Falls and River Valley and whatever.
No, we don't.
No, maybe not in River, sorry. But you had to fight for that and you're not, so what I am. So anyways, to say that living, all our garbage is going to fly away, but other districts, it's okay. That garbage stays there. We're the only bad people in West Nipissing that can't take care of our bins. That's sorry. That's a sorry statement. And I rest my case on that.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. And Living did have bins at one time, and they were removed because of complaints. I don't know if you're aware of that.
So why are they not removed? Why
They
are
were
they not
removed because
removed?
of complaints.
What
They were
about
removed just
Verner?
like Crystal Falls.
And they're still at Crystal Falls.
I'm talking about Laving and Cache Bay. They had them. You had them.
Make up your mind. It's Crystal Falls or Cache Bay. But anyways, I'm fighting for living. I deserve to have a try. If there's garbage all over the place, we'll reconsider. That's all. Not an
Thank
issue.
you. Thank you. Councillor Dees.
Okay, well, can I comment, or because we're not voting, I seem to misunderstand because you said that we need to vote and you want to vote and comment, so I'll comment on it.
Well, we're going to be
As far
voting
as
how
the
many-
bin, remember, I was there when he first started having the bin at the complex. It was terrible. People, like, it was starting recycling. I don't think there's a place in West Nipissing that was always perfect when it comes to bin. I think it's education, and that's the way that people will do the right thing. So as far as I'm concerned, the decision was made, and you can make a point of order if you want to. I think I would suggest that people request to see that meeting outside in case they think that we're trying to trouble again, because the decision was made, and I will support definitely the bin in Laving. Don't forget that Phil have been, and they do have some people, not all of them, recycling done, Cache Bay the same. Verner have 10 bins, and they do have some recycling picked up also there. So I don't see why that Laving will not get it, and I'm very pleased, and I will definitely vote for the budget because Laving is included in it, which should have been happening in 2019, but it's happening. Never too late to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we're at the point where, how many bins would location, for one thing, do Cache Bay get bins and living? This is what we need to vote on, and how many bins? Because the mayor at the last meeting suggested we have 2 bins in living and 2 bins in Cache Bay.
Point of
That is-
clarification, Mr. Chair, the mayor did not identify that it should be 2 bins in Cache Bay and 2 bins in Laving. What the mayor stated is I did not support what had been presented to us at the cost identified and asked for a review of that. I want to make that clear. Please do not put words in my mouth.
Okay, so now then we're gonna proceed with who supports living to have
Mr.
bins?
Chair,
Who,
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment just
well,
just a
you did
comment,
have your chance. You did have your chance to comment. Now we're moving to a vote. Who supports
I just,
living having recycling bins?
Excuse me, we're not in Russia. I can speak.
Yeah,
I'd just like to,
You
what?
said your comment.
Who are
I
we?
went around
Who are
once.
we? Well, I didn't
I
finish
went
it.
around once and you said what you
Who-
had to say. So now
on
I'm
council-
bringing it to a
Who
vote.
on council is an expert in environmental? I say send it to the manager and let the manager decide what's appropriate for living. It's not up to council. We're not experts.
So who's in favor now of having living to have bins?
Yeah. well,
A show of hands, please. I don't see them all. I only see 4 of them. Could you count them if you see them? I only see 4.
3, 4, 5. You got 5.
No,
I
no,
got
no.
5.
Whoa, 6.
I think Chris isn't paying attention.
The mayor, what are you doing?
No,
Okay,
I
well, there's
agree.
6. So
Oh.
then there is a decision that living will get bins. Now, how many bins would council put in there? Your Councilor Denise saying leave it to the manager?
I agree.
Is that what,
Okay.
Yeah. all right.
everybody's okay with this?
Yeah.
There we go. So then living will have their bins
I
at
think we
the
should state a
suggestion
minimum.
of, excuse me?
I think we should have a minimum. I think it's, I mean, if we have, you need a minimum of 2, one for the paper, one for the glass and the.
That is
plastic, I
correct.
mean.
That is
So
correct.
that's a
A
minimum.
minimum of 2, it should be 3.
Yeah, I agree with 3 and we should let the manager decide.
Let the manager decide. Denise right on this one.
There you go. Okay, so now can we move forward to
Excuse me.
approving
Mr.
the
Chair,
budget?
can you allow the CEO to speak?
Yes, I don't see him on this.
Oh,
my
sorry,
screen.
I am the manager. So you got a memo for 6, 3 and 3, 3 streams and 3 streams. That's my manager's recommendation, given tracking the availability of servicing those bins and the estimate of volume. Anything less than that will be an increasing amount of challenge.
So
That's what my memo says, right?
Thank you. Thank you. So we're all in favor. And so with this, then could we pass a motion to approve the budget as presented tonight for
think-
environmental services?
excuse me, Mr. Chair, I think there's the discussion about Cache Bay that we should have right now. Get it off let's get rid of the Cache Bay thing.
My,
Okay,
Mr. Chair, regarding the Cache Bay, like I stated, if one watches the live stream of November 5th, 2019, it was identified that council would be provided with a future report outlining a similar plan to the one of Leving, and pending if there was the availability of bins, and that there'd be a letter sent to Mrs. Jednak. So would it be realistic if we honor what we had agreed to and wait for staff to come back with a report at a later time this year so we can hash that discussion?
definitely.
Mr. Chair, no,
Yes.
Chair, I disagree because we've had our counselor that represents Cache Bay that says that we should not even have those bins. That's been supported by Yvonne, who has been getting calls, and I support that because I've been getting calls. I think that this should go to a vote right now and get it over with. I don't care what happened, Madam Mayor. You're rehashing the past again. Let's move forward. Let's look forward. Let's have vision in the community, please.
My final
Okay, so-
comment, Mr. Chair, it's not the fact of rehashing. It's the fact that when council makes a decision and then for whatever reason, the decision is not implemented, and then it's being brought back for a review and then brought back saying that there was no decision taken. I want to clarify the issue that if one watches the live stream, it was clear in the live stream, the discussion. And if we would have looked at that live stream sooner than today, we wouldn't have been hashing this discussion since December. That's my final say.
Mr. Chair, can we move
Thank
forward?
you. Yes, let's move forward with this. Now, who's in favor of bringing it back for the Cache Bay recycling? Who's in favor of bringing it back, or who's in favor of scrapping it right now?
Well, okay, first, why don't we
Okay,
vote not on
who
the
wants-
two? I'm in favor to bring it back because that's what we're supposed to do. And I
Okay,
don't
thank
like
you.
comments saying I don't care about something, because that was, if you don't care, then you should not be sitting there. Because it was clear that a report was supposed to be provided. Take the time to look at the screening and you'll see. So I
Okay.
am in support of receiving at a later date, and maybe at that point of time, it would be identified that Cache Bay doesn't need bins.
So could I
Instead
have,
of
please?
rushing tonight to vote on something.
Thank you. Now, could I have a show of hands of who would like to bring it back? I can't see that. I only got 4 on my
1,
screen.
2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
What's the
5.
fifth? Who's the fifth?
There's myself, Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Lise. 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, je me comptais 2 fois.
Yeah.
So it's defeated.
Okay, so it's defeated. So it's
Well-
defeated.
Okay, it's
Okay,
defeated, it's
so-
defeated.
It's defeated. Thank you. So with
On
this,
that note, Mr. Chair, subsequent to the letter that we had dealt with Mrs. Jednak, who submitted the request, Mrs. Jednak was scheduled to receive a letter outlining the decision of council of the day. Now that there's a new decision, I submit the request as a follow-up from Conseiller Leo, which he did last year, to have a letter submitted to Mrs. Jednak to explain to her the circumstances of the change.
duly noted.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Now, Jay, what's the process with this now that is there a resolution for accepting the environmental?
So there are two resolutions on the table. Elisa is making the slight adjustment to reflect the decision of tonight. The minutes of the meeting will reflect council's wish to have 6 bins in Living, and six bins in Living, I think, yeah. Mhm.
I thought it was 3 bins.
No.
Me too.
Did you guys agree to
Me too.
3?
We
3
agreed to
bins.
3.
No,
We agreed to 3.
No, the CEO made reference to 6 bins.
That's 70,000.
And he made reference that the manager of environmental services had recommended 6 for a reason, for the maintenance and for the upkeeping, and we agreed to it. And if it doesn't work, or,
Elisa,
we,
can I see you? Was that the assumption you're working on?
Yeah, because I heard that you were going to go with the manager's recommendation, which was the 6 bins.
6 bins.
So
If it's different,
$70,000.
but yeah.
Is
Mr. Chair, Mr.
May I
Chair,
ask a question? Is
What's
that
the thing?
$60,000?
70.
70,000.
But we got a surplus.
The difference on the rates is what, Elisa?
So, and I'm making the assumption, and this is, a conversation we do need to actually have. I'm making the assumption that the acquisition of those bins is actually funded through reserve, not funded through a one-time hit to the ratepayer. The maintenance of those bins and the picking up and all the rest is funded through the ratepayer. And so in that, if that's the understanding, then the rate increase goes from a 1% increase to a 1.28% increase on all of the rates, and that the acquisition of the bins themselves is funded through reserve. So that part would not hit the ratepayers.
So so if I can expand on that, you're right that the cost of the project is $70,000, but as with everything, Lisa finances it in the most effective manner. And so 1.28 is what you'd be voting on. So there's two resolutions. Melanie, what's the first one? What is it?
The first one is to accept the expenditure levels.
Okay, so the expenditure levels obviously is the 70,000 additional. How it's financed after is what Lisa's talking about. So kind of weird we put it there because we wanted to ensure that it was passed tonight, or a firm decision was taken tonight, because the ramifications of it not being taken were quite severe. So maybe, Madam Mayor, if you can ask the clerk to get a mover and a seconder on those resolutions. I think you all have this, you're all on the same page as to what's going on. 6 and Levine.
That's correct. Are we just waiting to do a little bit of tweaking on the resolution? Because the resolution that's identified right now identifies the expenditure estimate of nearly 1.8 million, which represents a levy increase of 1%. So do we remove the 1% from the resolution and identify the 1.8 plus the operation of 6 recycling bins for living?
Right. So Melanie has made that change on her copy. Elisa has sent that to her. So Melanie has the official record that you're voting on.
Perfect. Mover and a seconder, Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Vinnie Senecal and seconded by Councillor Leo Mallette. Whereas at a special budget meeting held on April the 26th and June 15th, 2021, deliberations were held to discuss the expenditure estimates for the management of solid waste for the year 2021. And whereas Council approved the expenditure estimates for the management of solid waste for the year 2021, be it therefore resolved that Council for the Corporation of the Municipality of West Nipissing approves the expenditure estimates for the management of solid waste in the amount of, Elisa, can you just give me the new number?
1,865,082.
$82?
Yep.
In the amount of $1,865,082, representing a levy increase of 1.28%.
All in favor? Carried, adopted. Now we need mover and a seconder to be able to set the waste management rates. A mover, Conseiller Denis, Conseiller Yvon.
And Madam Mayor, the treasurer has sent me all of the new numbers. And with your indulgence, I'll read the resolution for the bylaw and we'll insert the new numbers following.
Okay.
It is moved by Councillor Denise Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-44, being a bylaw to set the solid waste management rates in the municipality of West Nipissing for the year 2021, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Are we just waiting for adjustment of rates, or?
Oh, no, I said I have them, but there's quite a number of them.
Oh, okay.
I can read out the change to each one if you would like.
Does council members want the rates for each one? I see one nod, no, two no. No?
Not that much. but,
Okay, so it's going to be a minor change per household. So council agrees to proceed with the numbers identified here, knowing that there's going to be some tweaking adjustment done to it. Those in favor, en faveur, adopté, carried. So we move on to new business. Mover and a seconder for each one, the award of the sidewalk machine. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Alice.
Madam Mayor, I was wondering, it's 7:56. It's then 4 minutes. We're just gonna have, we can do that one, but it's going to be time for a break.
Well, once a member wishes to have a 15-minute recess, we can do it right after. I have no objection. But
After
we'll
E1.
proceed with the E1.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Lee Senecal. Whereas tenders for the purchase of a new sidewalk machine were requested by the Public Works Department, and whereas 2 tenders were received and opened publicly on May 27th, 2021 by the Manager of Public Works and the Director of Corporate Services, and whereas the quotations have been reviewed and the award being recommended herein consists of the best price meeting all required specifications, and whereas council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the quotation of a new sidewalk machine for the Public Works Department be awarded to Work Equipment Limited, having submitted a quotation of $148,995, meeting all specifications.
Any questions or comments? Conseiller Alice.
Well, just a clarification, is that a second one? Are we gonna have 2 or we're replacing the one that we have? It just,
I'll have to ask our CEO or Director of Corporate Services.
So there is actually
Yeah, go ahead.
so there is a trade-in included with the purchase of this one.
okay, so the old one was a trade-in. So
Yeah.
we only gonna have one. That's what you're saying, Alicia?
I actually don't know how many are in the fleet right now, but I know that there is a trade-in on this deal.
I guess what Conseiller Alice is asking is if there's going to be an increased complement of machine,
No.
sidewalk machine
Okay, well,
for.
that's
okay.
that's what I'm saying. Like, are we replacing this? If it's a trade-in, I can understand that, if I trade my car, I'm just not gonna get that car. I'm gonna get the new one that I'm buying. So that
Yeah.
was answering my question. Thank you.
That's correct. Are there any other questions or comments? None. Are there any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried. Adopté.
I would ask for
Conseiller Alice,
a 15 minutes break, please.
is there a seconder to the request for the 15-minute recess? Conseiller Yvon?
Madam Mayor, it was pointed out at the previous meeting that our procedural bylaw does indicate a 10-minute recess. Does this council wish to go with the 15, or do we want to adhere to the bylaw?
I know I was highlighted that, well, all of council was made reference to it. The request is 15-minute. I guess it's council to decide if they want to proceed with a 15-minute through a resolution. Conseiller
so-
Alice?
Well, it's just that we had, I know it was 10 minutes when we had a regular meeting, but on Zoom, it's quite different. And I think we started then to get a 15 minutes because I mean, it's not quite the same. So I would recommend that we keep 15 minutes, and when we're back to the chamber, we can go back, so.
Okay.
It is moved by Councillor Lee Senecal and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. At approximately 8 p.m., a motion was tabled for a 15-minute recess, following which the council meeting will continue.
All in favor? Tous en faveur? Carried. Adopté. So 15 minutes, I've got 8 o'clock. I'm not sure if my time corresponds to yours, Melanie.
I'm showing 8 o'clock right on the button.
Okay, so 8:15. Okay, so I guess I have the time of 8:15, so it's been 15 minutes. Am I correct, Melanie?
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to have to proceed. And the next item on the agenda is the award of the tender Bélanger Street, mover and a seconder. Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Léo.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime, seconded by Councillor Millet. Whereas requests for tenders for the reconstruction of Bélanger Street in the municipality of West Nipissing were opened publicly on May the 20th, 2021 by the Manager of Public Works and the Director of Corporate Services. And whereas 2 quotations were received, and whereas the tenders have been reviewed by Tulloch Consulting Group and the award being recommended herein consists of the best prices meeting all specifications, and whereas Council concurs with the recommendation received, be it therefore resolved that the quotation for the reconstruction of Bélanger Street project in the West Nipissing municipality be awarded to LaBelle Brothers Construction, having submitted the lowest quotation of $630,068, meeting all specifications.
Are there any questions or comments? If we have Sean that's with us, is the project in line with the budget that has been identified for 2021 for the capital project? Or Alyssa or Jay?
The project was split over 2 different budgets because a part of it sits in water and sewer and a part of it sits in public works, both with the roads and with the sidewalks. So we are within overall budgets in both public works and water and sewer.
Okay, and verifying the opening of tenders are done via YouTube. We got 4 tenders that came in for that submission. Even though I'm making the assumption that some tenders may not have been valid, they're not identified on the resolution. When we get the resolution, we only get, because according to the YouTube, May 21st, there were 4 tenders that were opened and submitted bids for this job.
Right.
And you're correct. And 2 were not valid bids. And so they don't hit the summary sheet, no.
Okay. And the only reason I bring it up is because at the low scale, it was like in the 400,000 range and the high scale was over 1.2. Okay. It's quite a chunk of change and difference between the margin from the lowest to the highest.
And always when we open bids afterwards, we also check their math. And not all the bids had the correct math on their opening as well.
Okay. Are there any other questions? None? Those in favor, en faveur? Adopté, carried. Mover and a seconder to declare various equipment as surplus. Conseiller Yvon. Conseiller Léo.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime, seconded by Councillor Millet. Be it resolved that certain public works equipment described herein be declared as surplus for the West Nipissing municipality, and be it further resolved that Council hereby authorizes the disposition of the following equipment: 1 1997 Ford plow truck PW 201 and a 2000 Sterling water truck PW 44.
Any questions or comments? Conseiller Lise. You are on mute, Conseiller Lise.
I know I'm doing, okay, my question is why the 2000? What's wrong with the 2000? Or 2000, okay, we're in 2021. So that's old enough for me. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay, well, it's good. You answered your own question.
Yeah, see?
So if there's no further question, all in favor? Carried, adopté. We need a mover and a seconder for exemption from noise bylaw. Councillor Chris, Conseiller Léo.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Millet. Whereas a request was received from Bradley Obey seeking Council's authorization for an exemption of the municipal noise bylaw in order to host a wedding celebration. Be it therefore resolved that Council authorizes an exemption of the West Nipissing bylaw number 1999-75 for a wedding celebration as requested by Bradley Obey which will take place at 306 Marlow Road in Sturgeon Falls on Saturday, July 17th, from 12 p.m. until 1 a.m.
Are there any questions? Aucune question? None. Any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried. Adopté. Mover and a seconder for E7 to authorize the signing of the MTO agreement for the connecting link. Conseiller Yvon. Conseiller Leo.
It is moved by Councillor Duhayman and seconded by Councillor Millet. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to sign a Connecting Links Program Contribution Agreement, Connecting Links Program Intake 6/2021/22, with Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Transportation for the Champlain Bridge Rehabilitation Replacement Design Project.
Are there any questions or comments? None. Any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried. Adopté. The next one, mover and a seconder to assume part of Dubuque Road in Crystal Falls. Conseiller Chris. Conseiller Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Denis Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-47, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed. Part of the south half of Lot 8, Concession 2, being Part 1, Plan 36R14528 in the geographic township of Grant, being part of the traveled road known as Chemin Dubuque Road in Crystal Falls.
Are there questions or comments? Conseiller Lise.
I just don't understand. So can somebody, I don't know, Sean or Jay or somebody can explain when do we do that and why are we doing that?
Our clerk
Oh, Mel,
planner
okay, Mel,
will be
sorry.
able
Could have
to
been-
provide the answer.
Through most of the rural roads in the West Nipissing municipality, through you, Madam Chair, are what are called forced roads, meaning they were created over top of private property. So whenever someone comes to ask for a severance application from the Committee of Adjustment, it's a condition that they have to transfer that piece of the road that we maintain that's on their private land to the municipality, so that we actually would own the road at that location.
Okay, thank you, Mel.
You're welcome.
Any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried. Adopté. We move on to the next item, National Indigenous Day.
Did we miss one? There's one we missed.
Oh, E9, the bylaw to assume and close part of Chemin Rivière-Veuve. Mover and a seconder. Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Rowley.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-48, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, and a bylaw to close portions of certain highways shall come into force and take effect from the day it is passed. And the assumption is parts 4, 5, 6, and 7 on a new plan to be deposited, and part 2 is being closed on the plan to be deposited, copy of which was included in your bylaw, all in the township of Caldwell, and being parts of the traveled road known as Chemin Rivière-Veuve.
Any questions? Aucune question. Just a quick question, and probably your clerk can answer. Why would the cost all be borne by the property owner if they're if it's to issue an if it's to resolve an encroachment issue?
So I can answer that one. I've been involved in that one. So this is actually our turnaround where it currently sits is not where it's actually shown on the plan. So we're actually just adjusting the plan to show what the current conditions actually are. Some of the road allowance was encroaching on the person's property. So in exchange, they're giving us those pieces. So it's basically we're making a situation accurate as it sits today.
Okay, and we have the cooperation of the landowner, so that makes life much easier.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? None? Any objections? Aucune objection? None. Carried. Adopté. On procède avec le prochain item E10, National Indigenous Day. And that's in regards to an email that Councillor Chris has forwarded to the CEO and our Director of Community Services. So, Councillor Chris, do you want to speak to the subject matter?
Yeah, so basically, I was just looking for direction if it's something that we want to recognize, and also it's come up, and you know these things, it's topical. And other meetings I go to, there's the land acknowledgement that's also done. So like I think basically I don't know if we can do it in time for this one because it is Monday and time's tight, but basically I was wondering if we could just direct staff to look into you know, what's the appropriate verbiage for land acknowledgement and you know, and to recognize National Indigenous Day. Do we have the right flag and that kind of thing? That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I may clarify the issue about the land acknowledgement issue, I'm already verifying into that. So, and that is not part of the email pertaining to the flagpole. I did speak with the Director of Community Services, and he identified that he was checking into the issue and also making sure that we had the municipality in communication with a contact resource person from Nipissing First Nation, A, to find out what the protocol is, B, the suitable location for a flagpole, and C, pertaining to the actual flag, and see if there's an opportunity for the flag to be flown year-round. So I was told this is being checked into and that a report would come back to council with the information and with recommendation. In the interim, the proponent that identified the need for the flagpole, who does a lot of volunteer work at l'Île des Scouts, there's already a flagpole, and also wanted to raise a flag to honor the 215 children on June 21st. And the resident was provided permission, and the chief of Nipissing First Nation was also made aware. And based on the circumstances, this issue is not going to be politicized for the fact of recognition to the 215 children whose lives were taken. So do we agree to wait for a report to come back from our Director of Community Services so we can find out what are the options, what's the cost, and how can we do this to recognize our neighbors, First Nation neighbors to around our municipality. Jay?
Thank you, Your Worship. Sure, we can come back with a report or we can do it sooner. I believe Steph, our Director of Community Services, and his crew have been working diligently on this thing, and I apologize. I forwarded this email that seemed to have some misimpressions from the proponent with respect to what's going on. But of course, Steph's role is exactly what you're directing staff to do, is to ensure that we do the appropriate due diligence to communicate on our own. It is our land, and despite well-meaning volunteers that make their own communication, that's fair, but we need to ensure, especially government to government, that we are appropriately acting. And so Steph has been doing that, and I just want to state, if there's an inference that we're trying to block anything, we certainly are not. We're just indicating that we do have procedures to follow, and so Steph is following those. Steph, the flagpole is where it is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and we do have kind of an indication of the flag, right?
Yeah, there's one flagpole currently at the Scouts Island. It's flying the Canadian flag, but as the mayor alluded to, for June 21st, if we have community members that want to raise a flag, they certainly can in that context. Now, as far as you mentioned, we are in discussion with Nipissing First Nation. Chief McLeod is aware, and we will continue working with Chief McLeod, and once we have a full report to provide to council and recommendation, we will come back.
So is everyone in agreement to wait for the recommendation coming back from our Director of Community Services so we can further see what the options, well, see what the information is going to be? On est d'accord avec ça? Oui? Okay. Okay, we proceed with the proclamation to designate June 20th as Water Power Day. A mover and a seconder for the resolution. Conseiller Léo, Conseiller Yvon.
It is moved by Councillor Millet and seconded by Councillor Duhaime. Whereas at the meeting held on May the 4th, 2021, Council received a presentation from the Ontario Water Power Association. Be it resolved that the Mayor be authorized to sign the Ontario Water Power Champions Charter on behalf of the West Nipissing Municipality. And be it further resolved that the Mayor be authorized to proclaim June 20th, 2021 as Water Power Day in the West Nipissing Municipality.
And the proclamation states Water Power Day is celebrated annually and was established to recognize the history and importance of water power in Ontario, as well as the role it continues to play more than 100 years after the first water power facility came online. June 20th was selected for Water Power Day in recognition of Sir Adam Beck, born June 20th, 1857, a Canadian politician and water power advocate who founded the Hydroelectric Power Commission of Ontario and promoted power at cost. Whereas the Ontario Water Power Association was founded in 2001 to represent the common and collective interest of the province's original green energy sector of water power, and whereas the municipality of West Nipissing and surrounding areas have benefited from more than a century of affordable, reliable, and sustainable water power, and whereas water power is the original community power embedded in dozens of villages, towns, Indigenous communities, and cities across Ontario. And whereas community water power projects create social, political, environmental, economic, and technological benefits. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Joanne Savage, Mayor of the Municipality of West Nipissing, do hereby proclaim June 20th as Water Power Day. All in favor? Tous en faveur? Carried. Adopté. We proceed with Community Services Service Communautaire. And the first item for discussion is regarding the Sturgeon Falls Beach. We have the issue of the vandalism, the safety concerns at the storage shed at the Sturgeon Falls Beach. We have the minimized disturbance noise at the beach. And then we also have the information of the 2020 funds spent on the Sturgeon Falls Beach. We have a memo that has been provided to us by our Director of Community Services, and I'll just ask that he walks us through this information, and we can discuss each item as we move on down the memo.
Madam Menace, if I may, did we forget item E12?
No, item E12 was removed, deferred to the next meeting.
All right.
So, Stefan, if we can start with the issue of the vandalism, safety concerns, and then get direction from council for that one issue, and we'll move down the second issue as well.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, we've seen a number of occurrences where the building's been vandalized as recent as last week again. We've notified our local police and they've agreed to do more frequent patrols of the area, but vandals are still at it. I won't go into the details of it, but it's concerning to some of the residents that live nearby. And so that's one issue we're dealing with, and they seem to target the actual building that's there right now. So on the subject of vandalism and the storage building that's there, the storage building is in dire need of repairs. I've provided more detail pertaining to the estimated cost of repairing it. We feel that there's limited use for that building currently, and we would probably best serve the beach by removing it completely. We do have to have standalone power because the power is connected inside that building, but we're also working at getting some pricing to do that. But we estimate the cost of having standalone power panel way less than actually renovating the building. As far as deterring vandals at that area, what we're also suggesting is putting motion detector lights so that we kind of limit the amount of activity at that site if people wish to go there after dark. So we're looking at several lights being installed, and hopefully that will also deter people from going there after hours. We're also looking at the possibility of installing security cameras. If that's something that we see as feasible and cost effective and could assist us in deterring vandalism at that site, we certainly would implement that. Also on the access of the property, Councillor Ravid had suggested some time back, and it's part of this memo as well, Madam Mayor, that that there's a recommendation made that we basically look at restricting anyone accessing that site from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. And again, obviously, if it's enforceable and if that's council's wish, it would also give us more leverage as far as deterring the activity that are ongoing at that site.
Okay. And according to the memo, the demolition of that building would be, no, the repairs to the building would be in the range of 7,500 to 8,500.
Yes.
However, to dismantle the building and to look at the electrical that's required, the panel as a standalone, probably it's forecasted to be lower than doing the repairs.
Correct. And Madam Mayor, I was hoping to have those numbers for council this evening. Unfortunately, we haven't received numbers that we could provide to council, but we anticipate it's going to be much less than renovating the building.
Okay. So pertaining to the issue of the building, does anyone object to the issue of demolishing the building and looking at a standalone electrical panel to be installed? Est-ce qu'on est tout en accord qu'on donne la direction à notre administration de démolir la bâtisse et de voir à l'installation d'un panneau électrique indépendant, which I'm confident that, with the experts out there, it's going to be also safe for anyone that tries to tamper with it. This day and age, there must be something as far as security, Stéphane, for electrical panel?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we wouldn't implement that if it wouldn't be safe to the public. 100%, yes.
Okay. So Conseiller Chris, Conseiller Dan, Conseiller Yvon?
So is the floor of that building, is it a cement floor?
I don't think so, Councillor. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's all aspenite. The entire building is built out of aspenite. And it was originally used, that building was put in place because way back when we used to have lifeguards work at that beach, and they would use that to store equipment and whatnot. And then we had some washroom facilities within that building as well, but it hasn't been used for those purposes in a long, long time now.
So follow up to that, you have washrooms in there. Is there septic tanks and things sitting around?
Yeah.
There is, eh?
I do believe, and we'd have to investigate that further, but I do believe at one point, and maybe Councillor Yvon would have more details on that. I don't know if they were housed specifically where the building sits now, or if there was a section that was added but then taken out. We'd have to investigate that 100%.
Thank you.
Conseiller Dan?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The group met this morning and they had a meeting, and they're in accordance with your plan, staff and council, of removing the building. But preceding that, they say that they may come back in the future asking for a lean, not a lean-to, but something that would cover where people could have a shade. And I basically told them that that'd be a next story, and that we would have to work on trying to find funding for that. So, the group is going to continue doing volunteer work. They're going to be continuing to clean the place, making sure it's nice. And because last year they put in over 100 hours, and under the leadership of Teresa, it's been a real good thing. To answer your question, Chris, the floor is aspenite, and there were holes in it. So I think that the best move is to get rid of that building because it is an eyesore. And unfortunately, I've been dealing with one of the residents, and we've been talking to the police and through Chris and through Steph. And it seems the only way we can enforce, having the police go in there is that we do pass a bylaw and that we close the beach from 11 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning. And that way the police would have would be able to charge people for trespassing. And that was recommended by through the police force, through Commander Michael. So I think that's the best move. The people are going to continue doing the work, and hats off. Thank you, council, for supporting this because people are starting to really use the beach. I can tell you, I see it with my own eyes.
So if I were to summarize it correctly, no objection to demolish the building, get the electrical panel installed. The issue with motion detector lights and security cameras. Do we have an estimated cost of what's anticipated for those two items?
Motion detector lights are fairly inexpensive. They're going to be solar, and you're talking less than $500 to install 3 or 4 of those units. The security cameras we need to look into depending, and I'll have that discussion with our IT manager to see what the best solution is. To also look at privacy issues and how we connect the security cameras to a system that we can actually manage. So there's a bit more detailed investigation, Madam Mayor, that needs to go into security cameras. But for now, motion detector lights is an easy and an inexpensive fix to assist with that site. Okay.
Is it realistic to say that we can get an update pertaining to the camera if council concurs? Because as Councillor Dan mentioned, there's a lot of volunteers that invested a lot of time for the cleanup at that beach, for the usage of the beach. And it's not just the vandalism, but there's also other issues pertaining to littering and so on. And if we had cameras, well, that would also substantiate and encourage those that are engaged with the excellent work that they're doing. So, Conseillère Lise?
Well, I do have a little problem with not the sensor light. I think it's good. I do the bylaw. Obviously, if we have the bylaw, I think it can be enforced that people, when they get the police go there a couple of times, I think they will find another place to go park. My issue with the camera is I think it's kind of a family goes or a couple goes, and I think it's a privacy issue. I mean, the beach, if somebody goes there at 10 and wants to skinny dip, I think you always got to watch the camera. So I don't know. I think a beach is not a place for a camera, especially if we have a bylaw. If we don't have a bylaw, obviously, I mean, I can see, but I mean, so I for one, I don't agree with, I agree with the sensor light, but not the camera, which I'm only one vote, but
Okay, thank you, Conseillère Lise. Conseiller Yvon?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the building itself, in the years that I've been working there, it was always a problem. It is a building that was work up and down, and the sewage system was also a problem. So I would agree dismantling the building, and also I would also agree with Councillor Dan Revita with respect to putting a bylaw in force as soon as possible, so that the police will have something to work with, and that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. We do have a pending bylaw that's going to be coming to council because that request was discussed. I believe there was a lot of information that was brought forward by Clear Lake Association, and when council agreed that we should have a bylaw regulating our beaches, all our beaches in West Nipissing, I think could be incorporated within that bylaw. Would that be correct, Mel?
You're on mute, Mel.
Wait, okay. So, and I think that's going to be an added value, you know, that council is going to be able to discuss even for other beaches if we want to have some control pertaining to usage and mitigating, you know, issues that we want to be able to work with our constituents. Conseiller Chris?
So, yeah, so I just want to say that I agree with I agree with Lee's, but for different reasons. So, it's a public beach, so skinny dipping, it's probably legal. But if people are doing lewd acts and they're caught on camera, well, too bad for them. But I disagree with installing a camera because I would say let's put the lights, let's put a bylaw, and let's not go to the extra expense of the camera until it's determined that hasn't worked and we need to, because the camera requires monitoring and etc. So if we do the two and that doesn't work, then we could consider adding the cameras. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the question then, who's in favor of considering cameras at the beach? Just a show of hands so we can give direction to staff. No one. So that'll mitigate some time to our Director of Community Services. No need to research and speak with our IT and come back to council. Everyone is in agreement with the motion sensor lights?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And is everyone in agreement? Well, we had agreed that we'd have a bylaw for beaches, so hopefully it can come back soon. And then this way, whatever our bylaws do indicate, we'll have to make adjustments maybe to the signs that are posted at our public beaches to ensure that people are aware. So I'm going to ask the question, how quickly can we have a draft bylaw for our beaches presented to council? Is it realistic in a month from now?
Conceptually it is. I'd have to look into it and I'll talk to staff.
Okay. So that resolves those issues pertaining to the building, vandalism, safety issues, and at the same time with the bylaw. And finally, there's also the budget expenditures in 2020 done at the Sturgeon Falls Public Beach on the memo.
Yes, we basically, it's laid out. We spent a total of $6,300 to complete the work, which includes removal of old wooden platform next to water's edge. That was a significant safety concern. There was some shoreline vegetation removal and some beach sand, and there was concrete blocks installed for safety reasons to prevent vehicles from going all the way down to the water's edge to park. So most were safety concerns addressed. So that's what was spent at that site in 2020.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to highlight one of the residents residing in the area at the public beach, Monsieur Paul Pemet. He's been very proactive every time there's been vandalism at the beach, that he's been posting the information. And I think that he's also proactive in submitting emails to support at West Nipissing to highlight the issues. So that demonstrates the mechanism of how the system works and alerts our administration that we have a problem, and the problem is brought to council for council to be able to resolve it. So kudos to Monsieur Pemet for being proactive in that way. Okay, so we move on to the beautification report, le rapport d'embellissement. That was a subsequent email that we received later this afternoon by staff, by our deputy clerk. I'm just looking for the email.
Madam Mayor, I drafted the memo. If you want, I can walk council through it, since you did receive it late in the day.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. If you can do that, that would be greatly appreciated.
So on community beautification, in discussion with Lynn Zuheim, who's been here much longer than I have, she informed me that community beautification initiative dates back to 2004. At the time, council approved an allocated yearly budget for beautification that was established by ward per capita. And that's how the money was distributed. And we had volunteer groups in essentially all wards that look after community gardens on municipal space and special projects and areas on municipal space that they basically would help beautify and maintain. That has evolved over time. Some volunteer groups have remained active while some are no longer participating. Some of the beautification volunteer groups, or we've seen groups being formed recently. We did do some beautification volunteer recruitment over the last year or so. We saw an increase in participation, obviously, in relation to the IPM. And so certain communities, such as Living, we're seeing more and more volunteers come forward. So they're touching base with our coordinator of community services, and she's basically our main point of contact to all these volunteer groups. And basically, we're assigning budgets or materials, and we're doing repairs and maintenance based on the volunteer groups' approach and suggestions and draft recommendations. And she's working with them to implement these projects. So currently, because of being late in the year and COVID and our budget being approved a bit later this year, we looked at, we haven't spent the amount of money that we would normally at this time, but there's been approximately $2,500 of budget spent so far. And we're also committing, we've also committed for another $9,500 for various repairs and maintenance and materials and supplies to other community volunteer groups and projects throughout West Nipissing. So of the $17,500 that council's approved this year, we've got approximately 12,000 of that either spent or committed to the volunteer groups and organizations working to help keep West Nipissing active in our beautification endeavors. We currently don't have a said policy or a formal process to allocate funds or to receive proposals and plans from our volunteer groups. We are recommending that moving forward, that we do establish a formal process and mechanism for community beautification groups to submit to staff prior to November 1st every year. We then collect that information, we discuss it with the community groups, we look at our municipal needs as well for our own infrastructure, and then a full budget submission based on what we have would be submitted to council at budget time. And then council could decide on year to year what the budget allocation is and which projects we're going to implement. Once we get council's approval on our budget submission pertaining to beautification, we then advise the community groups and we work with them and assisting them in implementing the beautification projects for each of our communities. So in a nutshell, that's an overview of the memo that was provided to council late this afternoon. And I apologize for that.
Do we have the information pertaining to the committed $9,500 for repairs, maintenance, materials, supplies for community volunteer groups?
I did get a sort of a breakdown from our coordinator. She did indicate that there's committed funds to for Crystal Falls to help with reconstruction of the flower beds that are there. They're absolutely in dire need of repairs. There's signage that needs to be done for Crystal Falls as well, that she had discussed with volunteers there. We're looking at purchasing new flower pots for downtown Sturgeon Falls. I'm trying to think here what else that's included. There's also flower pots for the Verner Rue Principale. There's also some flower pots for the Cannon in Verner, as well as the clock where we redid the entire flower bed there. And there's also some money allocated to the volunteer groups that have proposals and projects in place for Cache Bay, for River Valley, and for, I believe, Monetteville, she states. That's as far as the extent that I can remember that Lynn has provided me with.
Okay, Councillor Elise.
Hey, talking about the flower pot for Sturgeon Falls, we used to have the big one, and they were
Yes.
not just plastic one, they were really big. What happened to those?
So over time, Councillor, they've basically extended their life expectancy, and Lynn says that we need to replace all of them. We're having a hard time finding supplies, and with COVID and a lot of businesses shut down in our downtown, we really rely on our businesses to maintain and water those flower pots, and we haven't done them in 2 years, but we really want to get back into that. And so that's why we've earmarked some money to go buy new pots. So for next year, essentially, because I think we won't be able to pull that off this year.
So can I ask another question, Madam Mayor, if I can?
Yes, Councillor Elise.
I just want to know an update on the garbage can that we had approved, like, have they been ordered or?
Yeah, they have. We're expecting the delivery of those garbage cans shortly, and we'll try to repurpose some of the garbage cans. I believe some are going to Living and possibly other communities as well. So the ones that are in use currently that are still in very good shape, we'll repurpose in other areas where we need it. But yeah, we're expecting the steel black garbage cans for downtown to be delivered.
Okay, and one last question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Elise.
Okay, now about the fountain, like we're supposed to get a report. Do you know what's going on with that?
I do. The fountain will be repaired. We actually included Alan Carell in our discussions. Johnny Belanger has been working. Al had all the in-depth knowledge of that fountain, and he's determined, and again, the specifics I can come back to council with, but it's an inexpensive, quick fix. We'll be able to keep the fountain working as a fountain. We'll also be able to actually disconnect from the building that we're taking water from and connect to our own water control system. So we're gonna be able to put it back in service shortly.
I'm very, very, very pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Now, pertaining to the report, Conseiller Dan. No, you're on mute, Conseiller Dan.
I was just going to ask a follow-up question to Steph, but it's not regarding the report. It's regarding, and if I may, it's regarding the bike racks, Steph.
I have to do a follow-up on that, Councillor. I know we've got the bike racks. I know we were looking at installation, but I have not received an update. I'll follow up on that, and I come back to Council with more.
Thank you.
Well, does everyone agree that we need a policy moving forward which would facilitate the process of having volunteer groups come forward, identify their project with an estimated cost, and that would be incorporated in the budget next year? And that would facilitate our budget deliberation. Do we all agree with that? Okay. Twofold though, the 17.5, Council had agreed that we'd look at how we divide that amount of money for each community to make sure that everyone gets a fair share of the pie. My only fear is that since there's been so many funds committed, there might be some shortfall for some that do have projects that did not know that they had access to funds to beautify the community.
There's still approximately $5,000 uncommitted. The issue with that, Madam Mayor, is that certain communities don't have active volunteers at this time. I can maybe ask our coordinator to reach out to these communities to see if we can drum up interest and look at getting volunteers involved and at least getting the process started for areas that currently don't have active group of volunteers.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I brought that up at budget is because I can see on the report $2,500 was dedicated towards Ferner, Leving, and Sturgeon. So that means it's an average of $800 per community. Have they reached their plateau, their max? If Leving comes forward and they need an extra $1,000 for a community project, are they going to be eligible for it? How is the process going to be looked at if there's a lot of interest? Is it first one come?
Yeah, again, we don't have a formal process, but we can administer that and try to be fair to every community within our municipality moving forward. And then, we're really hoping that council will support the fact that we need a formal process moving forward. And that way it's clear. We've got a process, we follow it. It's council's budget submission. Once it's approved, we move forward. But for this year, I think, in fairness too, we're seeing an increase in volunteerism in the Leving area, and they've been active. There might be more of ideas to that they'd like to see moving forward with, which we haven't seen in the last number of years. So there might be a bit more work required to bring their vision to what they'd like it to be. So again, without being disadvantaging one community over another, I think for this year, Lynn has a pretty good grasp on what our volunteers are looking for 2021, and hopefully we can implement a new system moving forward, and it'll be much clearer for everyone involved.
Okay, Chris.
So I think one of the difficulties is it's not a lot of money, and if we start to prorate that over every community, like in my ward alone, I can count several communities, and once you prorate that amount of money over each community in, say, Levine, and I know there's lots of areas where there are more than one community, then you end up with very little money going to every place, and nobody can do anything. And Steph's, like he says, he's got some bigger projects in communities where they're revitalizing things that have been left stagnant for a number of years, and that those require more money. So I just see a little bit of difficulty if we just try and take that and prorate it over communities, as opposed to let us look at things on a one-off basis, because there will be a lot of one-offs.
Well, we'll have a policy to move forward. In the interim, I do have two questions. With the beautification and the cleanup that's undergone in Sturgeon Falls, which is still active, and throughout West Nipissing, there's always individuals identifying the need of a garbage can, okay? And I've been telling people just submit a request through support at West Nipissing. So if it's a location that does require a garbage receptacle, would this fit within the parameters of this budget?
Well, again, through our through developing a policy for beautification, we can certainly identify the types of expenditures that we're looking at. I'm not necessarily sure that buying garbage cans and having garbage cans at every second street corner is going to be effective for us, because we have to maintain those. And so we could decide, or council could decide, whether they want garbage cans and where garbage cans are going to be placed throughout this community as part of beautification, or if we want to stick to signage, to flowers, to community gardens, and planting trees and shrubs and whatnot within our community. So again, that could be decided at the time where council approves a policy. If it's council's wish to include garbage cans, then we can look at that.
Okay, but I mean, in the interim this year, because of the proactiveness and the volunteers, like I'm looking at some sites where it's really not even a garbage receptacle, it has no cover. And there's more littering being done by Mother Nature, by species, not human beings, that are spreading the garbage out of the garbage can. Is there a mechanism that we can replace those?
Yeah.
And have a true garbage can, one which has a cover.
I think we're in a good position because of the garbage cans that have been ordered, the permanent ones. It's going to because we had an abundance of garbage cans downtown here in Sturgeon, so we can repurpose those. And yes, we can look at switching the barrel ones without the cover to the ones with covers, so to avoid those types of issues. And moving forward, I as well agree that we'd like to replace those barrel garbage cans with more aesthetically pleasing and useful garbage cans but we'll have to do it over time because these commercial garbage cans are still quite expensive.
Okay. Are there any other further questions? Aucune autre question? Tout le monde est d'accord avec ce qui est présenté ce soir? Everyone is in agreement? Then we'll have a policy that will come forward. In the interim, there's $5,000 remaining if there's a group of volunteers that have an initiative, but it was also identified on the memo that priority was given to be able to maintain and upkeep some of our infrastructure, and some of the dollars is being used for that. Pas d'autres questions? Tous en accord? OK. Donc, on procède avec la discussion pour le musée. We proceed with the discussion for the museum.
You missed one, Madam Mayor. Update on the plaque for the West Nipissing Police Services.
Correct. Okay, so I'll pass it on to staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the memo explains, back in 2019, Crimson Pepper were retained, their local firm, to create a commemorative plaque in recognition of our West Nipissing Police Services. The plaque was developed in consultation with the police chief and members of the police board. The plaque was approved and initially scheduled to be manufactured in 2020. However, due to extenuating factors, the project was not completing there at that time. Council brought this back to our attention. I have followed up. Crimson Pepper have recently secured a manufacturer. I believe I received correspondence as early as yesterday, and the plaque is I think ready to be installed. We had said initially we were expecting the plaque to be ready at the end of June, but I believe it is ready to be installed. And the plaque, as agreed to by the committee at the time, will be mounted in the hallway between the Sturgeon Falls Library and the main entrance lobby area at Town Hall here. Again, this was the location was discussed previously by those involved in the development of the plaque and agreed to. And we will also do a communication recognition piece to follow, so that our public is aware of the plaque and the significance of it, recognizing all the police services that have operated within our community over the last 100+ years.
Any questions or comments? Conseillère Lise? OK, Stéphane, la plaque, tu parles là, que tous les policiers vont être mêlés. Non, ne sont pas tous sur la plaque.
No, I don't believe. Je pense pas qu'il y a des noms.
Parce que ça va.
Okay. Je pense que tu es en reconnaissance des différentes forces policières qui ont eu lieu dans notre communauté pendant les nombreuses dernières années. Alors, je peux peut-être envoyer.
Non, c'est correct, Stéphane, c'est parce que la façon que tu le dis, c'est que les recognize the 100, là, je dois savoir parce que ça a pris une grosse plaque. Ouais. Une autre chose que moi, ça, c'est ma pensée à moi. Je crois que la location, je crois qu'elle devrait être une place où que les gens vont la voir régulièrement, comme je pensais, comme, tu sais, quand tu arrives au parc, là, puis pour les bénévolats, là, comme c'est tout le monde qui vient en ville la voit. Si on aurait pu installer ça sur une roche à mini-AB, quelque chose de même, quelque chose que ça va être là, puis ça va devenir, quand les touristes y viennent, qu'ils vont être capables, parce que tu mets ça dans, je te dis pas que c'est pas voyager, là, l'affaire de la bibliothèque, là, mais je crois pas que c'est une place pour reconnaître en grandeur un service de 100 ans. Oui, ça, c'est mon idée à moi. Là,
oui.
Mais...
Si je peux, j'ai même parlé avec Frances Coburn, qui faisait partie du groupe. She was part of the committee when pertaining to the plaque and pertaining to the recognition that took place at the Marcel Noël Hall. The committee desired or the wish of the committee was to have the plaque mounted on the outside wall of the building coming into Town Hall. The hope was to be able to have a plaque to commemorate 123 years between the town of Sturgeon Falls and West Nipissing Police, and that the plaque would be mounted on the outside wall à l'entrée de le bureau municipal. De cette façon-là, tout le monde peut voir la plaque. Si on aurait eu la plaque de monter dans un couloir, un an passé, personne n'aurait vu la plaque parce que le couloir était fermé à cause de COVID. But that's exactly what the committee had discussed at the time that they were working on commemorating the 123 years service contribution. So is that doable, Stéphane, to have the plaque mounted on the outside wall of Town Hall as you enter the municipality, as you enter the building?
I guess anything is doable if that's council's wish. I wasn't part of those discussions, and back in 2019, I'm just, going by what was being told at the time. I can do a follow-up with those involved to make sure that was in fact.
Well, it was, and
Yeah.
I reconfirmed with Frances Coburn this morning, and she still had all of the information regarding the Sturgeon Falls and Municipal Police Service, and that's exactly what the organizing committee had discussed and wanted to see the plaque mounted to.
Okay. So I can follow up if it's council's wish. We can certainly do that. I'll follow up with our contractor or partner here and see to make sure that the current plaque that was made is made out of alu panel. It's a product that we can see posted outside. So I think it's weather resistant, and we can double check that. But if it's council's wish, absolutely, we can have it mounted here at 225 Olditch on the outside wall. As people walk in, the sign can be very visible to the public.
So would council be in agreement that the plaque be mounted on the outside wall of this building and would have a commemorative plaque which would be visible to everyone, as Councillor Ali stated, when people walk or that they conduct business at Town Hall, they would see the plaque as they enter the building? I see one show of hand, two show of hand, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that'll be the direction of council, to have the plaque mounted on the outside wall. And as soon as it's ready and we're ready to have it mounted, if we can be conveyed that information, and then this way, I would volunteer to communicate with the volunteers that commemorated the police service, so we can proceed with an announcement and unveiling of the plaque.
Will do.
Any further questions? None? Okay, now we move on to museum. On procède avec le musée.
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, if you wish, I can summarize quickly. During budget deliberations, council requested that an operation status be brought back for discussion. As we're aware, there are 2 staffing positions tied to the museum that are still vacant. Council decided to keep the funding allotment for the museum's operation as status quo based on existing budgets. We basically, we did post for summer students. However, we did not proceed to fill these because, as you're aware, through provincial regulations due to COVID, the museums in Ontario are still required to be closed, and indoor gatherings are very restricted and limited. So we did not hire, and all but 4 events or bookings that were scheduled for 2021 have been canceled at the museum at this time. The 4 remaining bookings are pending based on client's final decision. There were 2 in August and 2 in September. So we don't have that many activities planned at the museum at this time. As stated, the stay-at-home order has been is not stay-at-home. It's been lifted, but we still have 3 phases of reopening to go through, and I believe the museum will not be allowed to reopen, and indoor gatherings or outdoor gatherings will limit the operation at the museum until at least well into the end of July. That being said, the following recommendations are being made pertaining to the museum's operation. And we're recommending that the museum remain closed for regular operation until at least September 1. If the weddings or the events booked can proceed, we can still work with the individuals and allow their events to take place. But as far as the day-to-day operation of the museum, we are recommending that it remain closed until at least September 1. We will access and evaluate and monitor external factors, tourism trends, provincial guidelines, and as we move forward and come up to a conclusion as far as a reopening plan / strategy for council's approval as we get closer to the September date and we have more tangible information to share. Once council approves the reopening of the museum, then we will look at filling those vacancies for those positions that are tied specifically to the operation of the museum.
Comments, questions, Councillor Elise?
Well, it's, right now, obviously cannot be open, but I'm not sure about waiting till September 1st to try to hire somebody, because I mean, by the time you put something out, posting 2-3 weeks, we're in July, and then August, by the time that person is trained and blah, blah, blah. I think because the money is there and it can help and plan for the reopening, because it's not going to happen just on one day to reopen everything. So, and there's a lot of job that can be done even if it's closed. So I do agree right now that we cannot open it. But I mean, I don't agree with the fact that we should delay the posting and the hiring to be ready when it's time, because with COVID coming down right now, the number coming down and everything, I'm pretty sure it's going well, and people are getting vaccinated, and so I would get ready for it, and so not lose any time, because they've been, and we have, I think, a committee that could help also. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Councillor Elise. Councillor Chris?
I agree with Steph's proposal, but and I guess I'm probably getting in front of myself here, but based on the next month memo that Elise put together, and I'm just trying to find it in the budget, I'd be really interested to know how much money the taxpayer is losing every year on, like, an order of magnitude, because I know everything we do at a loss, but how does the museum fit into that? Because it generates very little revenue, and it's probably a very valuable property. So I'd just be interested to know if we have any, like, I know basically what the information costs us to run a year, but what does the museum cost?
Okay, well, that will be a request to follow at a subsequent meeting. Because if we want to have a strategic discussion pertaining to the value of the asset, what it costs to taxpayers and what benefits it brings to taxpayers, that's a strategic discussion, and that would be direction given to council. And that would be conditional that majority of council agrees to that request also before we direct staff to do that. So the question that Councillor Chris brought up would, does majority of council direct staff to come back with a strategic report regarding the added value of the museum pertaining to cost and pertaining to value and pertaining to having an analysis?
So I'm not really asking for that much. It just, very simple.
Well, I know, but if we really want to have a good analytical discussion pertaining to that, we do need figures, we need amounts, and those amounts, well, that means a report. So you know what? Staff is hearing the message now. So just to have a sense of direction, who would agree in the interim for such a report to follow at a later date? Okay. But in the meantime, for this year, we've incorporated 2 HR component in our budget. And there's a recommendation by Conseillère Lise based on what we've been provided. Instead of waiting to open the museum until speculation September 1st, can we proceed now in posting the jobs so we could be ready when we are ready, when we have the permission to open the museum? That's exactly what I heard from Conseillère Lise. Conseillère Lise?
That's exactly what I said, but to come back to what Councillor Fisher was saying, the report, I raised my hand because I had a question. I did not vote on that. I mean, right now with the discussion, I think we should have that discussion maybe before next budget, but right now this budget this year, and I think there were no decision about regarding, we supported to keep on operating the museum.
That's right. That's
so
right.
We need to go on with what we had proposed. And at some point of time, I think staff can decide when they're going to bring us, maybe before budget. But I mean, it's a valuable asset. It might be a really nice piece of land, but it's a valuable asset. Like, I mean, in the last 2 years, it's been increasing and increasing. I mean, school and everything. I mean, and yes, it's probably not making money, but there's not a recreational facility in West Nipissing that's really making a ton of bucks.
Absolument raison. Absolument raison. So today we're dealing with status quo as per what we allocated for the budget. And according to the information provided by Stéphane, it's identified that we may not be able to open on September 1st. Once we know when we can open, then we'll proceed with the recruitment. There's a recommendation to proceed with the recruitment immediately so we can be ready for September 1st. Conseil Rowley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I support what Stéphane brought forward is to whatever he's supporting with this museum. This is what I'm supporting now, is to wait and see what the outcome of this will be. Because if we hire somebody and we pay that person doing nothing, it doesn't make sense. So thank you.
Excuse me.
Conseillère Lise.
Well, my intention was not to say that we would hire someone and pay for nothing, because staff is always saying that how much they could need help. So I'm pretty sure that person could get trained and work at recreation. And I don't think that there's any reason that that person should be sitting down. And if we hire somebody that is new and not somebody that's familiar with, especially with this museum and all that, I think there's a lot of jobs that need to be done, training. So we're talking about, so we gotta wait in September, then we gotta wait a month and a half to hire somebody, and then we gotta wait for what they want to say, the new budget is coming. So come on, like, I mean, so do whatever I vote. By the way, it's 9:24, so.
Okay, so show of hands. Moi aussi, je suis complètement d'accord avec ce qui Conseillère Lise recommande. Puis j'ai one other option too. It would be great that we also consult and have some feedback from the advisory committee. We've had volunteers that have been on the advisory committee for many, many years, and they've been inquiring ever since we started our budget deliberation what would happen to the museum. Personally, I think it would be, my personal opinion, it's not wise to wait for recruitment in the last quarter, because we're not going to have an individual in position before year end, and also looking at the training and getting the museum back up to par. Right now, it's been closed, not because of our fault, but out of sight, out of mind. And there's definitely a lot of work that needs to get done and instrumental to help out. So I'm just asking who agrees with what's being presented by Stefan to wait? Okay, so to wait for hiring? Okay, so we're going to sit idle and wait until we find out from the province when we can reopen. Okay, Canada Day celebration.
Again, Madam Mayor, memo was provided. I think stage one of the Ontario reopening plan takes us after Canada Day. Outdoor gathering numbers are limited to, I believe, 10. We are recommending again this year that we not proceed with Canada Day celebrations and fireworks so that we're not encouraging gatherings for Canada Day. We're recommending, like last year, that people can celebrate Canada Day in a virtual manner or safely with the immediate family, respecting the provincial guidelines.
Okay, and I think everyone concurs with that. Is there any disagreement? Aucun désaccord. Pertaining to the fireworks, do we have a set budget for it? So if there was an opportunity that fireworks could be done at a later date, i.e. Labor Day weekend or Thanksgiving weekend, would that be an option? Is it an opportunity that we can consider?
We do have money set aside for fireworks through our municipal budget. We also receive a grant on a yearly basis from Heritage Canada. I'd have to follow up to see if that money is specifically earmarked for Canada Day or if we can use it for other celebrations. But we do have our portion. It wouldn't be as big as what we would normally have fireworks because we do get subsidized by Heritage Canada. But we can look at that and come back to council. If it's council's wish to have fireworks for Labor Day, we can look at that as well.
Okay, if it's an opportunity, it'd be wonderful that it could be deferred to another timeline. And I think people would appreciate that as well. Any disagreement to that? Aucun désaccord? Okay, so we're almost 9:30. Before proceeding, we have a curfew, but before adopting the curfew, there's one item on the agenda that was a subject matter that was deferred from last meeting, but it's also time sensitive because of the, we're talking about Canada Day, the firework bylaw. Do we have the opportunity? Is there an agreement to discuss the firework bylaw? So before
we go, Madam Mayor, we go till 9:30 or we go past. And I would recommend right now, we have enough another meeting. And if we don't have another meeting, then we should start where we finish. We just don't, we have to finish what we're starting. And so.
Thank you for your feedback, Conseillise. We still need a mover and a seconder to be able to proceed beyond our curfew of 9:30. Donc, ça prend une résolution pour être en mesure de procéder après 9h30. Mover. Conseiller Chris. Seconder, Conseiller Dan.
It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Vita. At approximately 9:30 p.m., a motion was tabled to extend the meeting beyond regular curfew in order to proceed with the agenda.
Those in favor? So we don't proceed beyond curfew. So I just want to, before we proceed with the adjournment, I just want to make sure that there's a lot of pending issues and subject matters that were deferred for more than one meeting. What I counted from our meeting of June 1st, we had approximately nearly 20 subject matters. And probably this evening, we still have some, and some are time sensitive as well. And I'm making reference to fireworks for Canada Day and pertaining to our bylaw. So I'm going to be recommending, as I did on June 2nd, I will summon a special meeting We normally keep our Tuesdays available. That was the intent when we amended our procedural bylaw. So we can proceed with all unfinished business. There are many other subject matters that are scheduled to come that will require as much discussion. And we're heading into the summer months where normally we really want to keep it to 2 meetings for July and August so staff can enjoy holidays. So
Madam Chair, excuse me, I've had my hand up for about 5 minutes now.
Yes, Conseiller Dan, as soon as I was finished, I was going to provide you the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that for the decency and the respect to the staff and to our other members, why don't we just land on next Tuesday? Let's not have frivolous dates. Land on next Tuesday, have our meeting. That's what I would do. And get a commitment around the table right now that we meet next Tuesday. Then staff will know and they can get ready for it. That's my right now.
Thank you, Conseiller Dan. And I'm making reference to exactly what I did the last time that I requested a summoned a special meeting for the subsequent Tuesday. And I can tell you I did not get flowers from some members of council pertaining to their reaction. However, Conseiller Dan, I am
that we vote on it.
Dan, no.
Why not?
The mayor has the privilege under the procedural bylaw to summon a special meeting. I'm making reference this evening as far as a comment that the date to be considered is a Tuesday. I made reference to that. And the reason for the Tuesday is the fact that everyone's schedule was to be kept on Tuesday. So tomorrow morning, I'll contact our CEO and our clerk, and I'll summon a special meeting for next Tuesday at the same time, 6:30, to deal with all the matters that were not dealt with. Those that can attend can confirm their attendance. And you know what, Conseiller Dan? I'm going to say one thing. It seems every time that I try to execute my position, my role as mayor, you try to circumvent our procedural bylaw. That's my opinion, and the subject matter is concluded. Let's proceed with the resolution to adjourn. Conseiller Dan, I received the information, duly noted. Okay, be prepared.
Madam Mayor, just a point. I'm just asking, Madam Mayor, are we just going to continue with the present agenda next Tuesday?
You know what? That's the hope.
Okay.
That's the hope.
We would just continue.
So let's wait till tomorrow, and I'll proceed in doing my functions as mayor, which sometimes, I'm being challenged every time and accused that I don't have the capability to do my functions, and that's not appreciated. Anyway, that's off topic. And I'm ranting right now. Conseiller Leo, we're proceeding with the resolution to adjourn the meeting this evening. So is there a mover and a seconder? Conseiller Yvon, Conseiller Denis.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2021-49, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality, to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 15th day of June 2021 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Those in favor, en faveur? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, adopté, carried.
It is moved by Councillor Duhaime and seconded by Councillor Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on June 15th, 2021 be adjourned.
All in favor? Carried, adopté. Bonsoir, good evening.